Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I've made an interview, but I have a very special guest today. This is Margaret P. Graham, founder and president of MPG Petroleum. Margaret is a geologist. She's a true oil lady and an energy independent, the backbone of the US oil industry right now. Hi, Margaret. It's great to have you.
It's an honor to be here today, Irina.
It's really a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this chat for a while now. Tell me, Margaret, what's it like to be an independent oil company, energy company in the United States right now?
Well, in short, it's tough. As you know, the industry has been slammed with just thing after thing, really beginning with the COVID demand collapse and sent oil prices spiraling down even to negative territory for a short little while. And although we have recuperated very nicely at about $100 a barrel, and we were north of 100 not too far in the past, but the difficulty really seems to be with the policies of the United States administration currently, in really what amounts to all-out war in the fossil fuels business, it seems. And so the message has been sent loud and clear to private equity capital firms that they should not cooperate or engage much in oil and gas, and instead so much money is being poured into green renewables and ESG. So it makes it very difficult to find capital in today's market, even at $100 oil.
That's really, really bad, I think, because now with the war in the Ukraine going on, there is going to be, and there already is, a stronger demand for alternative oil suppliers. And the United States is one of the biggest potential suppliers to Europe, for example. But with all this red tape, where do you think things are going from here on out? Would the administration, I don't know, give you a break in order to stimulate exports?
It seems that rather than doing the common sense thing and encouraging oil and gas development to occur, they're actually just doubling down, while at the same time making gestures as if they are softening, recently opening up of some federal lands for drilling, which was just a small percentage, I think 20% of what was previously available or requested. But then although that sounds positive, at the same time, they increase the royalty demanded on that production by 50%. So the anybody looking to drill there would go from paying 12.5% royalty to 3/16 or 18.75%. So that's a full 50% increase in royalty, which is really a tax essentially. So they give in one hand and take away in the other. I don't see this administration, regardless of the difficulties high oil prices put on our own people, and of course everybody around the world is suffering under the inflation brought about by increased oil prices. So I don't see the administration. You always can have hope, and we always do, but I think it's going to be upon businesses and strong individuals who know that there is a lot of money to be made in oil and gas. It's going to come down to private individual investors and oil companies working hand in hand to generate the activity that is going to bring up supply in the United States, that we could be in a position to be, again, a net exporter as we were in the previous administration.
But isn't this really the opposite of motivational for the industry and for private equity? This would say they give with one hand and take away with the other, and it's more words than action. So, I mean, I'm not an investor, but I'm thinking if I was, I wouldn't be too sure if I would put my money into new oil production, if I know that it will be challenging to bring this production online?
Well, that's exactly the point. The uncertainty of it all creates basically deadlock. People don't know what to do, what changes could yet be coming down the pike. Fortunately, most oil and gas production is not on federal lands. Most is on private lands, and in that way, we remain somewhat autonomous to some of the federal regulations and increases in royalty on federal land. So for people that are drilling projects like MPG Petroleum is on private lands, that gives us quite a lot of flexibility that others may not have. Also, I think the major oil companies face so much more risk because, carbon footprints and regulations from the SEC and the EPA seem to really target the larger oil companies because that's where the deeper profits are, to be frank. So I think this is going to be a time, and it already is becoming a time of opportunity for small independents and stalwart investors to put their shoulder together with oil and gas companies and do something that's a patriotic investment, good for the country, good for oil prices, because honestly, $100 oil is more than what we really, much more than what we need to be profitable.
Yeah, and all this inflation pressure, to a large extent, I think, stems from high energy prices, including the prices of oil and gas as the basis. What about renewable energy? And by renewable energy, I mean mostly wind and solar. Are they a big challenge to companies such as MPG Petroleum, to the energy independence?
The challenge is the competition for dollars. So a lot of money is going into projects that are green, renewable. In truth, the frustration about it is that it's highly unprofitable. It's rather it's not energy dense like oil and gas is and coal is. So the unreliability of the wind and solar power generation is, of course, something that is very difficult to contend with. The lifespan of the facilities is not long. So those projects, if one ever put the pencil to it, and I think investors are beginning to realize the profits just are not there. So it may be a feel-good investment that is popular, and the greenwashing of the society. It sounds nice. And I would like to point out that I have a strong background in environmental studies. I was going to major in environmental studies before I actually decided to change my major to geology. I am not without my love of the environment and of the planet, just like anybody might be that is more anti-fossil fuels. But I also recognize that the oil and gas industry really has changed culture. It has actually provided the comforts and the necessities of life that we rely upon on a daily basis. And although green renewables, solar and wind have a contribution to make, I'm for using all of it. I'm not exclusively in favor of one or the other, but let's use it all. Let's not try to throw the baby out with the bathwater, however, because you just can't flip a switch and change overnight from fossil fuels based economy. And that's worldwide, it's globally the truth. The world runs on oil and gas, and you can't just overnight change things because, you're afraid of so-called climate change. Another very costly idea that I'm not sure there's any real scientific proof that fossil fuels has anything to do with global. I don't want to get too political with you here, but I'm a scientist.
No problem.
We've been in climate change since the last ice age, and I, for one, am grateful for it.
Yeah, there's that. Now that you mention it, I'm always reminded about plastics when we talk about climate change and how bad the oil and gas industry is. And we talk about how bad plastics are for the environment. Sure, some sorts of plastics, single-use plastics that we use for shopping or for takeout food, yeah, they're bad. But nobody tends to mention the single-use plastics used in medicine, in hospitals. The fact that the oil industry and the invention of plastics actually, to a significant extent, I think, made modern medicine what it is today.
That's absolutely correct.
And this tends to get overlooked because there's a lot of cherry picking going on in the political narrative about oil and gas and how bad they are. And you're right, it's not really political. I think it's a statement of fact that climate is not immutable.
No, and it is changeable, and
it's changeable, yes, all the time.
And it has been since the creation of this earth. And there are many other factors that are much more impactful than anything human kind is capable of. And what I'm talking about are solar flare activity, which we are in a period of high solar flare activity. Also volcanic activity. We're also in a very high volcanic activity period in history. All of these things impact the atmosphere globally in a manner that is first of all uncontrollable and highly much more impactful and significant than I guess emissions from automobiles and such. And the same thing with farming. In the manner in which we are farming animals on feedlots rather than allowing native grasses to grow and animals to pasture and to move around, to allow the pasture to go fallow and to be fertilized and to come back with a new crop of grass. It's healthier for the animals. It's certainly healthier for the planet, because the denudation of the surface of the earth is really a big problem because, of course, the carbon dioxide, grass and trees are great sequesters of carbon dioxide.
Yeah, but actually, one thing I don't believe that there could be any argument about is that human activity has an impact on the environment. It has an impact on nature, on everything. And this impact is not always positive.
That's true.
In fact, I'd say it's largely negative in terms of ecosystem destruction. But what the current narrative tends to overlook, once again, are all the other activities. Yeah, they're talking about industrial farming and all this, but the focus seems to be exclusively on oil and gas, on the oil and gas industry, as if it's been selected to be the culprit behind everything bad that we have ever done to nature over the last 200 years. But actually, we have been hurting nature, damaging nature for much longer than that.
Well, since the onset of mankind, we've been burning fires, burning wood, and creating smoke and particulate matter that goes in all countries that have become going from third world to second world or second world to first world countries. All countries go through a natural industrialization that creates pollution in their local environment, for sure. And then once they get rich enough, then they are able then to have the money to be worrying about the environment and start doing things technologically to clean up the mess that's been made. So this is just a natural progression. We've got to live. And if there were a magic panacea that would say, hey, we've got this new a product that requires that requires nothing and there's no damage to the environment, I'd be all for it. But it's not within our means at this time. maybe if nuclear fusion ever is able to be managed in a way that's not dangerous, that might be a solution. And as we're speaking of nuclear, many nuclear plants were the first victims of attack and taken off of the power grid system. So, I think there has to be a fine balancing act between living and doing what you can do to protect the environment. You want to enjoy the environment, you want to survive, but you have to live. And the one big elephant in the room that almost no one ever mentions is population. We have just too many people on this planet demanding too many things. And that's probably the worst problem of all. It's just the number of people that are in existence. And what do you do about that? Well, I don't know. Talk to India and talk to China, I think.
Yeah, you actually hit the nail on the head here, because I was about to mention the so-called just transition. Now, more and more people are talking about not just an energy transition, but a just transition. And some of these people are saying that the energy transition crusade, if I may call it this, right now is a rich countries' game, because, as you said, they have reached a level in their industrial development that they can afford to talk about wind and solar, to invest billions in wind and solar. But India can't. China is investing billions in wind and solar, but it still has a lot of mouths to feed. What about African countries? What about all these people who have no access to electricity at all? So the argument of the just transition proponents goes something like, and I completely agree with it, that just because we live in first world countries and can afford to pay more for electricity because it's cleaner than oil or gas derived electricity, who are we to deny people in Nigeria who have no electricity at all to have some electricity, even if it comes from coal or gas? I think this is pretty arrogant on the part of Western civilization, to be honest. We have no right to deny them the same comforts and conveniences that we have had for years, thanks to the oil and gas industry.
Absolutely correct. People that make those decisions, if they only had to live in the same conditions as people living in the middle of nowhere with no electricity, they would have to live there one day, maybe a few hours, and they would very quickly change their minds about that. It's easy to as you said, be arrogant about it. It's easy to throw around grandiose ideas when you yourself are not paying the cost of it.
Absolutely, yeah, and these people with no electricity access are in fact paying the costs.
Absolute abject misery, which is where we would be without oil and gas, access to oil and gas, exactly where we would be. And I hate to say this, but I think it's the truth, that people are not really going to understand until they themselves have to suffer some pain, and whether it's pain of the wallet, when they go fill up with gasoline and it costs $100 to fill up your tank, or that you can't afford the groceries because the cost of trucking those groceries, and all the supply chain issues that have come about since COVID, and at the same time, the rebounded demand, which has spiked up oil price at the same time that there's not much drilling activity. Most people don't realize that you just cannot turn on and off a well. So a well, from the day it begins producing, it's never increasing in production. It's always decreasing in production as you produce and consume hydrocarbons from that well. There is reservoir depletion, and so the production levels in time trail off, some more rapidly than others. Like the shale plays have been notoriously quick to deplete. However, they're wildly successful because the risk is low, but the depletion is very, very fast on those wells. Therefore, particularly in the shale plays, one must continue to drill in order to replace the reserves that have already been spent. So it's not like you can just say, oh, today we're going to have more oil because we want it so. It takes investment, it takes the work, you have to lease the land, you have to develop the prospect, then lease the land, then you have to capitalize the project, and then you have to implement the project. And so these things take time. The difficulty in the industry is not just lack of capital, but it is also lack of qualified personnel, to be frank. Because when oil prices collapsed as they did after COVID, so many people were laid off, and some people will not return to the industry because the stress of going through a layoff, it's essentially like being fired. Anytime you have to leave a job and you're leaving because it was somebody else's choice other than your own, it feels like failure, whether you had anything to do with it or not. And of course, the strife and all of a sudden, your income stream is completely cut off. So, many people who have been through these cycles, repetitively have just left the industry. The enrollment in schools for geology and engineering has trailed off, as it typically does after a down cycle. And so, frankly, we are suffering a lack of qualified personnel. Not only from the E&P side, but also from people in the field that are on the drilling rigs and on the frac crews and all the various services that are required to drill and produce oil and gas, not to mention supply issues with steel for casing and fracking. It's just, it's a very challenging time. And so, when we hear from the mainstream media that we're just, the oil and gas business is just being selfish and, not working hard to return to higher production levels because we're enjoying $100 oil. That's it. There's so much more to it than just that. The oil and gas industry has always carried more than its fair share of the load of stabilizing the economy and producing, all of the goods and services that we have come to enjoy and rely upon.
It's not just about oil prices. Yeah, it takes some. I'm sorry, you're such an eloquent speaker. I get drawn in. I forget what I was about to ask, but really, I don't need to ask anything because you've painted a really detailed, bright-colored picture. I think. How do you see things going forward, like the next couple of years? Do you see more pain, things getting worse before they get better, or do you see light at the end of the tunnel, which is not an oncoming train?
Well, the one thing that we can't know, for instance, a few days ago, it was announced that further lockdowns in China are occurring because of the new COVID variant. So the one thing that is out of everybody's control is should this spread, and should it be one that creates a lot of illness and hospitalizations, that economies shut down. And if that's the case, then you have a demand collapse again. And then you would see oil prices going down. So that is the one variable that is very difficult to predict. I think what is probably easier to predict is the fact that people are tired of being pent up from the last few years of the COVID situation. And so that is the reason that demand rebounded so robustly. As soon as people could, they got back to traveling and got back to being out and about and not shuttered in their homes, afraid of the virus. So I think the demand is strong. I think we have shown that amply. I think that it's slow to occur, but I think financing and capitalization is beginning to wake up and say, hey, we're missing profits over here. We're not investing in the oil sector, and the publicly traded companies are they have been making a lot of money over the last few years. And I think that will trickle down to smaller companies and private investment. People will realize that you can stay frozen and keep your money in the bank and make no money, or you can be bold and be involved in a sector which is highly profitable, is a good inflation hedge, and it's just the right thing to do for the economy. So I see going forward that oil prices are going to continue to be strong for the demand reason, but also because of a lack of activity. The activity, although it's slowly waking up, I don't think it's going to come back strong like it was pre-COVID, because until the administration changes, people are just hesitant. There have been some new regulatory things that have come around just recently that have people, larger companies particularly, scared in their tracks with the accounting for carbon, not only your own, but everybody else that's involved in your project. So, I mean, you have to worry about what carbon footprint the welder may have created because he came out to the location to weld your wellhead on.
Yeah, that's kind of insane. So the scope, whatever emissions, it is kind of insane, and it also sounds very expensive.
It's very expensive, and it will never be accurate. And so you're just chasing after something that it would be very difficult to ever, and even if you did do it, so then what are you going to do about it? So the situation is such that we will not see a return to activity by many companies. And so therefore, I think supply will be slow to grow, and demand will, people don't stop wanting. They don't stop wanting things or to do things or to go places. So and we've got more and more people demanding all the time, and the growth of the second and third world countries that are coming on and wanting more and more. So I don't think demand is going away. I think oil prices will climb because supply is going to be continue to be tight, and so I think we're going to see a healthy market in oil and gas for the foreseeable future, particularly as the green, renewable, ESG, climate change environment, people are, even as the administration changes, there's a large part of the population that really does. They've really believed all of what they have been told, and they don't know whether it's correct or not correct. Mm-hmm. So I think as long as the green renewable push is occurring, the fossil fuels will be impacted in terms of lack of supply and competition for market share of capital. And I think that we're going to have a strong oil and gas industry. In terms of oil price, and natural gas prices already going through the roof, over $7 in a BTU today. And so these are for probably the past 20 years, natural gas has not really been much over $2 per million BTU. So today it's about $7.50. So again, that's probably going towards the need of Europe for LNG. And of course, LNG is liquefied natural gas. And so the demand for natural gas all of a sudden is in vogue again. I think we're going to see a strong market. And by the way, the green renewables are really not very green at all.
Oh, yeah, we know that.
You know that. You write about this very eloquently and in a very detailed manner. But just for the purpose of those that are listening to this interview that don't know this, green is pretty brown, actually. It requires a lot of combustion, a lot of diesel and gasoline powered equipment in order to manufacture the wind and solar equipment and to produce not only manufacture them, but to produce the raw materials to manufacture them. So it's not as green as one might think.
No, it is going to become even less green because of growing demand, which will need more production, which will need more energy to produce, to mine all these materials. It's like a vicious circle, really.
And more land, and more land
And more land. Yeah. But we don't have any more land. I mean, we have the land that we have, and we have growing global population. It's a conundrum to put it politely. Well, Margaret, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been a real pleasure to have you, and I hope we meet again for another interview. Meanwhile, it's been really enlightening and great. It's been great. Thank you very much.
It's been my honor and my absolute pleasure, and I look forward to doing the next one.
Me too. Thanks. Thank you.